everybody, SonGoshuaku here, and welcome to this podcast review for My Hero Academia Season 2's The Final Exams Arc. But first, make sure to hit that subscribe button followed by hitting the notification bell so that way you are notified as soon as my content is released. And please welcome back my co-host, Rebecca RoseGold.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we've been doing these now. This is our fourth My Hero Academia podcast. We're about to wrap up season 2 here. So let's get to the final exams arc. So this basically takes place from manga chapters 60 to 69 and anime episodes 34 to 38. There are no opening and endings here, so we'll just get right into it. So basically, in the final exams, they take the rest of Class 1A and they have to go up against the pro heroes who are going to be handicapped with these heavy weights on their arms and legs and everything, because obviously during a training session these students are not strong enough to take on pro heroes at their full power. So they split everybody up strategically, and I've talked about this, me and you talked about this before we recorded. This anime is so strategic based that if I didn't write notes down, a lot of stuff would go over my head and everything. So that being said, every character was designed to team up with one another and take on the villain to point out their weaknesses and see if they can overcome their weaknesses. And of course, Midoriya is put up with Bakugo, and I felt so bad for Midoriya while he's literally trying to train on this for by himself, and Bakugo wants none of that. But let's go through here each one. So we had Sato and Kirishima versus Cementoss. Basically, they failed to defeat him by trying to attack head on with the building. So a tough break for this one. I've got nothing much to say. Cementoss owned them, and yeah, they tried. They tried. Anything you got to say about this?
No, nothing. Yeah, for Sato and Kirishima, I was like, Kirishima, obviously, I really liked him, but I'm like, in the end, again, it just shows that they're kids and they have a lot to learn. That's it. Like, there's not much else to say.
Right. All right. Next one was Asui and Tokoyami versus Ectoplasm. So this is one of the ones I really did like. So they worked really well together as a team. Basically, they painted the wall by Ectoplasm, and Tokoyami used Dark Shadow to cuff Ectoplasm, allowing both of them to pass the exam. So the way they were able to strategically work, because he thought he had both of them, but he used Dark Shadow to get the cuffing done while his hands was literally tied up with them. Brilliant. I loved it. What did you think about it? This was definitely one of the cool strategic ways they found out to win.
Yeah, I was wondering, I don't know if I mentioned before, because obviously there's a lot of ships going around. and I remember hearing that people shipped Asui and Tokoyami, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why? And then once I got to this episode, I'm like, oh, wow. Like, you can tell they work well as a team. Like, just the way that they both think, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do like this. And okay, like, they just worked so in sync together that I was like, oh, okay, I see what everybody's talking about. Like, yeah, that could work, you know? Yeah, obviously this was a really interesting fight to see. And now I get the whole ship where I'm like, yep, I get it. I see it.
Yeah, you told me about the shipping stuff, and I had no idea that was a ship. I thought everybody wanted Asui versus Midoriya.
There's multiple ships, of course.
Wow. Well, you know what? I can tell you, I don't follow this stuff, so yeah.
I can't help but see it. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Because people are, like Asui and Midoriya, I'm like, I don't really see that. This one I do see.
It's because somebody had a subscriber who actually commented on one of our podcasts about Midoriya and Asui and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that must be the big thing. I don't follow the ships, so please forgive me. Once again, Rebecca Beck, she has all the ships, so definitely go ahead and message her on social media if you guys want to know who she ships and all that stuff. And then let's see, moving on to the next one, we had Iida and Ojiro versus Power Loader. Boy, these hero names are a lot more easier to say. I noticed.
For anyway,
sure. Yeah, the team passed the exam by basically taking their defense to the sky, then escaping, where Powder Loader was able to be put on a basically disadvantage. Once again, great stuff. I love the strategy. Take it to the sky where he would be at his weakest. This is another well done strategy. Anything you got to say about this one?
No, it's pretty much like you said. Like, it was just interesting to watch. I'm like, all right, good strategy.
Now this was one of my favorite ones, and I really love this one. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu versus Eraserhead. I really love this fight so much that I really didn't need notes for this fight because I still remember it I'm not even gonna look at the notes because I remember this one. This is one of the ones that stood out to me. So this was great for Yaoyorozu's character development and everything. Basically, where she eventually learns that she is not, I guess you could say, weak as she thought she was, and she learns to work with Todoroki, who's basically all on the attack, and Eraserhead's all over them. And eventually, I think they realized she was able to create objects that were able to, I think they worked as like decoys or something like that. And as a result, they end up tricking Eraserhead for a second. And this is where we get to see the softer side of Eraserhead, because he could have stopped him, but he chose not to because he loved how well they put their plan together at the end to escape and pass. So I really loved how Todoroki was great at encouraging Yaoyorozu. It's quite the tongue twister to say.
You got it.
Yeah, and this is really great for her character development, and especially since I think, like, what weren't they two like the ones that were really recommended and everything. So I really enjoyed it. I can't say enough about this, and like I say, it was just so great, the character development they gave to Momo here, and stuff like that. How did you like this one?
Well, I don't know if you know that this is another ship that people really started to ship, where they're like, wow, Todoroki and Yaoyorozu, like, they'd be so cute together. And that was another thing.
Is that what a lot of fans do every time two characters just because they team up really well? Like, oh, put them together. Oh, no. They teamed good together. Put them together. Like, okay.
But literally, and some people ship like multiple ships. They're like, well, no, I like Todoroki in this, but also Todoroki and Yaoyorozu, So for me, because I heard that, and I'm like, okay, so Todoroki and Yaoyorozu, how do they? I'm like, I guess they're both smart. Let's see. And then when this fight happened, I'm like, oh, that's why everybody ships it. Where he was like, because she was like, no, I can't do it. I don't remember. She was like doubting herself. And then Todoroki's like, no, like, why do you think, like, who do you think voted for you to be the class president? Because she had like, what, 2 votes or something? And then, or I don't know how 2 votes, I don't know. But she had less than Iida, and then Iida ended up being the class president. But he's like, why do you think I voted for you? Like, it's because I believe in you, like, as a hero. And I'm like, wow, like, that's why everybody's totally shipping them together. Because obviously, like, she's feeling weak and you build her up. And that's the whole point of kind of like a partnership. Like, when you're down, I lift you up, So I'm like, that's why everybody's shipping this. But anyway, about the real fight, it kind of goes hand in hand with that, where I like how Todoroki was able to encourage her. Where Todoroki, again, from the start, he always seems so closed off. Like, oh, I don't care. I just want to be like, I want to like kind of like show my father what's what and whatever. And then slowly he starts becoming a person who cares. Like, again, like Yaoyorozu feels weak. So he's like, hey, like, don't feel like that. Like the old Todoroki would be like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to do this on my own. It's whatever. But he was like actually working as a team with her. And I really liked seeing this fight with Eraserhead.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. And I apologize to the fan base out there if I'm not up to par on the shipping aspect of the fan base and everything. Once again, that's why Rebecca is here. And so moving on to the next fight, Uraraka and is it Aoyama versus
Aoyama,
I believe, versus 13. And basically this was interesting because it almost was too simple if they would have just thought about it. I'm pretty sure if anyone's an Inuyasha fan out there, this got to bring you back to was it? Oh man, it's been so long since I've watched it. But was it? Is it Miroku? Right? His name is Miroku, right?
Yeah.
Miroku, the one with the wind tunnel.
Oh, I miss Inuyasha.
Ah, yes, good times there. All those of you in the 2000s know what we're talking about. If you're a teen or a kid in the 2000s, you know what Inuyasha was all about. But anyways, here with My Hero Academia, so she right from the start, this is another one of the fights that I could remember vividly off of my mind, because she does like her whole thing where she's like trying to suck him into the black hole, and they both are on the defense and everything, and he says, I think he mentioned something about like to Uraraka, like, you like Midoriya, don't you? And she gets blush and lets go, and she gets right close to 13's hand. And I think this was actually not a strategy from Aoyama. He just decided to randomly ask a question, so it was like pure dumb luck on his part that this worked out. But she's coming towards her, and of course she's not going to suck her up, so she cuts off the whole black hole, and right when Uraraka's in distance, she nails her with a super kick, and bam, like, I think it was a roundhouse kick. She did some really high-end kick, I forgot what it was exactly, and basically cuffs, Aoyama's able to cuff 13 right after that. And when you think about this fight, it was so simple from the start. They really could have just used that to their whole advantage. Wait a minute, why don't we just let go? Because she's not going to suck us up. She's not going to kill us. And then that's our moment. I'm like, that fight could have ended, this whole thing could have ended a lot quicker than it did. But I liked it. Once again, she used her training and everything that she learned, and Aoyama took advantage. So yeah, what did you think about this whole deal?
Well, yeah, I mean, going off that, I just felt like it was kind of a cheap win. Because if this was a real fight, you would die. She would have sucked you up. You would have been dead. Oh, but because it's not, like, I just felt like it was kind of like a cheap win where, like, because the teacher backed off, that's the only reason you guys were able to win. But if she was giving it her all, you guys would be dead. And I don't know. And I guess maybe the reason that they added this kind of scene was it was like they're building up that story for Uraraka. Mm-hmm. Oh, she likes Deku. Oh, you like her. Oh, so they're kind of building up that, like, what is it called? Like when they just focus on, this is the female love interest. There you go. They're focusing on that female love interest. We're like, Uraraka's supposed to be the female love interest. So, like, let's give her a scene, where, like, she's thinking about Deku and then this happens. Like, it's almost not exactly fan service, but it started to feel like it in that moment. Like, what? No, I don't like Deku. I'm like, of course you do. What are you talking about? What is this, But so I guess you kind of have to build up that relationship.
Cue I Won't Say I'm in Love from Hercules.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
that starts
songs
playing in the
Disney.
background. So then for me, yeah, but like you said, it was really cool to see her, like, use that training that she learned. But that being said, it just felt like a cheap win. Like, for sure, she would have killed you guys had she wanted to, But yeah, it was still interesting to see.
And, it reminds me that I think I may have mentioned last podcast or one of these previous podcasts that I saw the meme where it shows Deku and Uraraka, and it says, when you love him, but you have to wait the entire series before you can finally confess it to him because you're a shonen manga character.
There you go, yeah.
Oh, man. Let's move on to the next one here. All right. Oh, man. In pro wrestling, we call this jobbing. But this wasn't just jobbing. This was a squash. You might as well even say, I don't know if I'll use the term bury. That's another pro wrestling term. But these are just words that people use to describe how bad a character was booked for their character to get beaten down in wrestling. And this is what this is. This was the squash of the century here for at least this arc. Maybe I'm underplaying this, but I don't know. I feel sorry. It's almost depressing to watch for these characters. Ashido, and is it Kaminari?
Kaminari,
versus Nezu, who I still can't get over. His quirk is super intelligence. Like, he has no powers. It's just he's strong because he's smarter than most people. Okay, it's just hilarious. So basically, they succumb to the crane that he's working with, and they fall for every single trap he sets, and they completely miss the one path he left open for them, and they are donezo. They are done. Like, they didn't even have a chance. Like, they were.
But yeah, like, I feel like this was just unfair because you pick, like, I mean, I love Mina and I love Kaminari, don't get me wrong, but they are the dumbest. Like, so I just feel like they put the dumbest people with, like, the smartest. Apparently, he's super intelligent, right? So they put the dumbest one with the smartest guy. And I was like, no, like, it was hard to watch them fail.
I never really paid attention that apparently they were the dumbest of the students because they were all just like, they're just characters in the background.
Well, they were failing a lot of their not their classes, but like they would take a test and people are like, oh, I did this. And they're like, oh, they were always the last. And I'm like, oh, they must be so dumb. Like, I love them. Like, They're so dumb.
Yeah, I was like, apparently, I was like, oh, I guess I wasn't paying attention to them that much and everything, but like, I guess I see it now through this. I want to take the time to shout out to ChucklesP on YouTube, because honestly, like I said, there's so much strategic stuff that goes into My Hero Academia that this stuff would just go over my head and I would forget certain details. Like there are certain fights I was able to remember this arc, but not all of them. So he had actually made a video where he explained a lot of this stuff, and so shout out to him. It was a great refresher for me. But yeah, one thing he said in his video is that if Kaminari used his electric powers at full blast to stun the crane machine, and Ashido used her acid to blow through the rest of the rubble, she could have escaped through the exit, allowing them to pass. He also said in the beginning of the portion of his video that they basically took, like you were saying, the two dumbest students and put them against the smartest creature on the planet. So if they would have won using that method he mentioned, then they would have ironically been left themselves stupid. Kaminari becomes mentally Kaminari becomes mentally disabled after using his electric powers for too long. So he brought up the irony of that. So I was like, wow, that went way over my head when I was watching this. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, so shout out to ChucklesP. He did a great video breaking down every single fight of these. Let's move on to Koda. And by the way, before I even move on, did you think of that? Could they have done that? Or is that one of those things it just comes to you now, like, oh, they could have done that?
Yeah, now that you say it, I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. But as I'm watching it, I'm just so into the moment. Where I'm like, oh, wow, they, like, I'm just like watching them fail, So I didn't think of, what they should have done. They should have gone through here. I don't think about that until really after. But I think that,
Gotcha.
Yeah, with this fight, it wasn't as, I guess, as main to me. Like, to me, when it was Deku and Bakugo, I'm like, oh. But for Mina and Kaminari, I was like, oh. So I just kind of enjoyed that fight without thinking too much about it. So yeah, I didn't think about it until you mentioned it. That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was just totally comedy relief when I was watching it. Koda and Jiro versus Present Mike. First of all, let's just give shout outs to the sound engineers on the Japanese and English dub. They did a tremendous job with the sound on this one, because I felt it every time he exploded into his sound vibrations. Man, they echoed through my TV into our ears. Like, wow. Like, the sound editing was really on point with this. So yeah, it's making Jiro bleed, and Koda was afraid, basically, even though he was like being afraid to tell where he had the ability to speak to insects because he was afraid of them. But eventually he does say something, and basically he sets up all the insects to engulf Present Mike, who is completely succumbed with fear of insects, and they just run right past him and get to victory. All too easy, but it took a while to get there. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's like an elephant, the most mightiest animal in the kingdom, but yet you put a mouse in front of it, it runs. I guess that's what they were trying to do with this fight. What did you think? This is the first time we actually got to see Present Mike in action too.
Oh yeah, that's true. But honestly, I will say with this fight, Koda's one of those characters you just kind of forget is in the background. Like, it's him, and then I forget the name of that other boy, the one who eats sugar. And then he gets really strong, but you do know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I forget his name. But that's what I'm saying. I forget their name. Why? Because they're just sort of in the background. Right. And that's what I felt with Koda. But in this fight, it was interesting to see where I'm like, oh, he's not completely useless. I don't know why I felt like he was. And it wasn't, I guess I kind of forgot what his quirk was. But yeah, it is like talking to animals and stuff. So it was interesting to see them fight. Yeah. And that was go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was just going to say, yeah, because I remember somebody mentioned before where they were like, because again, with the shipping, they were like, oh, wow, like I bet, like nobody's going to ship like Koda and Jiro, but they actually did really well together. Like they should ship them, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I was just thinking, that they were like, oh, maybe because he's not so cute, they don't ship him. But I was like, oh, wow, they worked well together too. Like I never really thought about it. But yeah, like you said, it was interesting to see Present Mike in action too.
Yep, and now it definitely, and then I think you heard the woman, the one that was it Recovery Girl, she made she was hilarious. Thought it was ridiculous how he was afraid of a few bugs. But next up we had Hagakure and Shoji versus Snipe. So basically, Shoji pretends to surrender while Hagakure cuffs Snipe. Basically catches him off guard because she was invisible. I remember the guy ChucklesP. He thought it was probably one of the dumbest fights in the entire thing. And that him being a sniper, he should still be able to feel his presence there. And it's like, but she's got to be a joke of a whole gag of a character being invisible. It was like, what was your thought? Did you like this, or did you think he should know better than that? He is a sniper.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point. He probably should have known better than that. But that being said, this was another fight I wasn't super invested in. Like, I was like, whatever happens, happens. Like, So then when they went, I'm like, okay. But now that you bring it up, I'm like, actually, that doesn't make sense. If he's a sniper, like, he should have been able to to sense that coming. But in the end, I'm not super, like, bummed out by the result.
Right, and then we have it's time to talk about Mineta, which if you all haven't figured out by now from all this time podcast is a character that she can't stand. But this is interesting. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this because this was integral for character development of Mineta. So Mineta and Sero versus Midnight here. All right, so Midnight, this must have been the fan service fight or whatever. Midnight seduces/sedates Sero. You know what? It reminds me of one of these times I was on Instagram. I saw one of my friends cosplaying Midnight along with her friend who was another one of the My Hero Academia superheroines. And what was hilarious is that in the post they had, it stated, it's like, my power is this and her power is that she stinks. And it's hilarious because I thought like, yes, like usually if your scent knocks somebody out, you stink, but they're trying to say that, oh no, she smells so good, it just seduces them and puts them to sleep. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here. And then basically before passing out, he gives him a mask and he's running off, and Mineta's like just basically using the tape to try and cover his mouth. Ironically, Mineta, he sounds like he's outsmarting Midnight. Yeah, ironically, he outsmarts her by luring her far enough, and he takes his purple balls and basically causes her to get stuck basically and run right past her, take Sero and walk outside the exit. And the way they shot the color, they did this dramatic painting.
Oh yeah,
they did this dramatic painting of him walking out, and he outsmarted her. So letting you know, our reminder, this guy, man, the way if we're gonna use wrestling term, the way they book Mineta in all these situations, you wonder like this guy should have failed by now, but he finds a way to get out of these situations and everything, and use his purple balls to even outsmart Midnight. So there's more to Mineta than it seems. I thought this was hilarious, and I was like, I was just shaking. I'm like, this little guy, there's something more to him. They find ways to make Mineta useful in the show. Ironically, I thought it was hilarious. It was fine for what it was, but let's hear from you. I assume this will be the rant time of the podcast. Go ahead. Let's hear.
I'm trying to think, because wasn't this the moment where you find out why he wants to be a hero?
I think it may have happened during the yeah, I think it is. They tell his backstory. I think it is, yeah.
And because from what I remember, I was mad about it, where it was like, oh, okay. Where, when you see a certain character, you're like, all right, well, maybe when I know their backstory, like, they'll make more sense to me. Or, like, I'll start to like them a little more. And I remember with Mineta, it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're going to tell us, well, this is why he is how he is, or why he wants to be a hero. And then, like, I'm going to have this, like, newfound respect for him. And from what I remember, he's just like, no, like, I want to be a hero so I could, like, get girls and stuff. And I'm like, that's the reason? Are you kidding me? Like, I remember getting mad. Like, I can't remember I'm pretty sure it was this fight, though, where I was like, you are just trash upon trash. But that being said, like you said, he can be useful if he really, like, puts his head, like, if he really, like, puts his mind to it, he can be useful with this quirk. But that being said, I don't even care for him. Like, I'm just like, ugh, like, just his whole reason for being in the show is just
I
like,
just want to butt in right quick because
ahead.
I want to say that I have known Rebecca RoseGold for about a little over a year and a half now, and that is the first time I've heard her say anything nice about Mineta. This was a groundbreaking moment.
well,
Continue.
I gotta give credit where credit's due, I guess. But I was like,
I've
okay,
never
like if
heard
I
you
had to
say
say
anything nice about the character.
if I had to say, yeah, if I'm just looking at it objectively, like, okay, yeah, your quirk isn't completely useless. But that being said, you're useless, okay? Like, I just he's just one of those characters that are just meant to be this comedic relief, perverted, whatever. And I can't stand. Ugh. But that being said,
go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say it was funny how, yeah, because I forgot about where they made it like a dramatic like art, and I don't know, when you said that, it made me think of like, how in SpongeBob when something like dumb happens, sometimes they'll just like get really detailed with the art. Like they'll zoom in. Like that's how it felt as you were describing it. I was like, oh yeah, they did go dramatic. And it was like, ugh. I hate that they use so much like time and energy drawing Mineta. Like,
I talk about this from a filmmaking standpoint. They used a shot often referred to as the worm's eye view, so that way when you're looking up, it makes everybody. And the WWE uses this technique a lot too with people who are 7 feet tall. They have the cameraman shoot them from under so that it can really put over the size of how giant a wrestler is who's 7 feet tall or more. And that's kind of what they did it here to make him look like he was a big man on top, and just like he was this giant of a person. So I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Let's get to the main event of this one. Midoriya and Bakugo versus All Might. This is the true thing that really everything was building up towards. So basically the key notes here is that, and you just knew where this was going from the start. Like, I'm coming into this, and I know me and you're probably gonna have a difference of opinion here, because I'm sitting here. I showed my stepfather, he couldn't stand it. Like, we both were shaking our head. I remember we watched this. Just Bakugo coming in. I was like, dude, you know good and well what All Might is capable of. You have seen what he has done back in the end of season 1 with that Nomu, and he's just gonna come in here and think I'm gonna just go ahead and beat him by himself. Like, Bakugo. So Bakugo basically gets beat up badly because, of course, it's All Might, the symbol of justice, and both are eventually separated. And you got poor Deku, and I feel so bad for Deku because he's actually trying to strategize. He's trying to strategize with Bakugo, but Bakugo doesn't want nothing with it. And he eventually punches Bakugo in the face. It's like, hey, look, we got to get our act together. And we do get a look into Bakugo's history. Bakugo eventually finally agrees to work with Deku, as the one thing they have both in common here is that they both don't want to lose. And Bakugo gives Deku his arm grenade to be launched towards the exit, and Bakugo goes for All Might, but when on the brink of defeat, rather than run through the exit to secure the win, Deku, of course, like a true hero, he can't leave anybody behind, like a true friend, he returns to the battlefield to punch All Might away from Bakugo, grabs him, then exits out with him so that they two can both pass together, both figuratively and literally. And that's how this goes. So eventually, Bakugo does come around, and they both ultimately were able to put their differences aside, work together, which is what this was designed to do, and they overcome All Might. So yeah, once again, this reminded me a lot of this episode was it was mostly filler. Goku and Vegeta, when Goku's desperately trying to tell them that they need to fuse to defeat Super Buu, reminded me a lot of this. I felt sorry for Midoriya with this whole thing, but in the end it works out. Overall, I mean, it was just a really good. I think if anything, this fight really showed the potential of where Midoriya and Bakugo could be if they put their differences aside. But it's like, Bakugo, dude, get your head out of your butt. Midoriya was there, so that was my take on it. Now, Miss Number One Bakugo fan, let's hear your take on this fight. I take it you probably will have a much, maybe you won't, because Midoriya is your boy too, so maybe you have a different take. Let's hear your thoughts on this fight.
Well, I'm trying to think, because it's hard differentiating who I am now to who I was when I first saw that fight, because I'm thinking, when I first saw that, I wasn't as into Bakugo as I am now. Because this is after season 3 and everything. So now I'm like, Bakugo, yeah, number 1. But at the time, I was sort of obviously like I was like, oh, he's cool as a character. But then I was like, oh, Deku, you know. And for me, watching this, I felt the same as you, where I'm like, what does it matter with you? Like, okay, sometimes in life you're gonna have to work with people that you're not super excited to work with. But you know what? It's like life or death. Like, go for it. Like, what are you guys doing? You know. So he's like, no, I'm gonna fight on my own. Like, what are you doing? Like, I remember back then watching it being like, you guys make no sense, because like you said, you're fighting All Might. This is the number 1 hero. You know what he's capable of. For you to just be like, oh, I'm gonna do it on my own. Who are you? What are you trying to prove to who? Like, and that's what I don't get too, where this again, this like hatred he has for Deku, like he's like, no, I don't want your help, I don't want your help. I'm like, Bakugo, who hurt you? Like, who hurt you so bad that you're just like, I don't know, like, are you looking down at me? Like, I don't know. He just gets these delusions in his head, you know? And then with this fight, I'm like, okay, finally when they finally were fighting together, I'm like, geez, like, look at what you guys are capable of when you work together. Like, so amazing. And then, like you said, I love how Deku, he's such a sweet boy. Like, he could have just ran and secured that win for both of them. Right. Yeah, secured the win for both of them. But he's like, no. Like, it's just in his instinct to help. Like, he's like, no, I gotta bring Bakugo, no man left behind, you know. And I love him for that. So for me, yeah, it was really interesting to watch this whole fight. But that being said too, I was scared, like when All Might was, and of course he was playing like a fake villain, like, haha, you think I don't know this? And he's like fighting them and he punches him and all that stuff. Like, it was scary for me to watch, where I'm like, oh, like, this is what he's like. Like, I'm glad he's on our side. I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm glad he's on the good side. Like, geez, because if he was evil, he's one contender. You know, it was scary to see him fight them. But yeah, overall, obviously, this match was so like fun to watch.
Definitely. And you know what? I thought anyone who's a fan of this show or manga definitely had to resonate with them. I'm pretty sure we all in the work, everywhere in work, no matter what industry you are, we've had to work with someone who's a pain in the butt, and you got to work with them and everything somehow to get the greater good done for the whole team and stuff. So I think this is definitely very relatable to everyone. So once again, I just like how Koei Horikoshi puts the stories, things that are very relatable in life, and puts them into the show. Oh boy, I've been waiting to talk about this one. Alright, so we are here at Deku's encounter with Shigaraki at the mall. Now, when it comes to My Hero Academia, I don't got really too many things to complain about or even rant about and everything, or logic holes to point out or anything, but this is a time where I'm going to point out a logic hole. I can't be the only one who is thinking this. Shigaraki comes up in the mall to Deku. Now, I'm just going to put it this way. Rebecca, if you're at the mall and you're walking and you see this kid where this mysterious person dressed in a black cloak clearly has his hand around the kid's neck, and they don't look like they're playing, the kid looks stiff, scared as heck, would you think that's normal?
You know what? I'm thinking that, like, I don't know if maybe, because people, I don't know what they were trying to say in this moment, but what I'm thinking is kind of like people were so into themselves, you know? People are talking like, oh, let's go to this store, let's go to that store. You're not really looking around at your surroundings. You don't see that this kid needs help. And honestly, that's kind of realistic in a way, where I feel like a lot of people where you're like I don't know how guys experience it, but as a girl, like when I'm being hit on and I'm uncomfortable, I kind of look around like, oh man, somebody save me. Because I feel like if I get rude in this guy's face, he's going to attack me, or I don't know what's going to happen. Because I don't know how guys can be, you know? So you kind of look around the room like, oh, is somebody going to save me? And people just kind of pay attention to themselves. Like, they're like, oh, let me just do my own thing. Oh, if you start screaming or something, maybe somebody would look over and be like, oh, she needs help. And I feel like that's how it was with Midoriya in this case too, where it's like, he grabbed his neck and he's talking to him, and Midoriya's just kind of stiff. And unless you start screaming, no one's really gonna. Everyone's like, oh, who knows what they're talking about? Whatever. Like people just kind of keep to themselves. But obviously, that being said, I feel like, I mean, I'd like to think if I were in the mall, I would have been like, that kid looks not okay. Like, because that guy looks really creepy, right?
And how suspicious would he look? You brought up a great point. Yes, things like that definitely go on in life and everything. And I never really thought about that scene like that way. But I know I was just sitting there through the whole scene. I love the dialogue in this scene. We're going to talk about that. But I was just sitting there, the way they animate everybody going about their business, like, does nobody think this looks normal? Like, I mean, even if the guy was dressed normal, he's in a black cloak. Like, who walks around like he's just...
He looks like a terrorist, straight up. Like, he's about to, like, shoot up the place. Like,
yes, and I'm like, and clearly, like you know, and like even if he's got the hand around throat, like okay, you could see some friends going around, like maybe one friend's got their hand around the other friend's throat, but if they look like they're both laughing and chuckling, I'm like okay, that's probably just how they play and they're cool with it.
Yeah.
But he clearly looks stiff and terrified, and clearly like I was like. Nobody thinks this looks ridiculous.
Exactly. And I remember as I was watching it, I was feeling scared too. Because I remember I've been in situations where I'm like, okay, like this guy won't stop hitting on me and it's kind of getting aggressive. And I'm not, how should I say? I'm not afraid to be like, I don't want to be like impolite. But I'm like, listen, if I go off on this guy, he's going to go off on me right back and it's going to get really bad because he's already getting aggressive. So I kind of look around like, and you kind of have that fear in you where like the adrenaline starts kicking in where you're like, what should I do? What should I do? You know? And as I was watching this scene happen where I'm like picturing myself, okay, if I'm Midoriya and this dude just grabs me by the neck, like sits me down and we're sitting here talking, we're like, I have to sit here and pretend I'm calm even though I'm actually not. And you could see it in Midoriya's eyes, like he's freaking out. I was feeling it the whole time with him. Like I was like, you don't know what's going to happen because it's not just that he could hurt you. He's going to start hurting people around you. Like he could just straight up boof. Like you don't know what's gonna happen. So I was watching it and I was like, Midoriya, no. Like I was so like I felt for him in that moment, you know.
That's a great segue into the line that he says. But what saves this scene, logic aside, was the dialogue in this scene. And I actually quoted one of the dialogues here from the it's from the Funimation dub, but they were practically the same what was said in Japanese. So one of the lines that I thought was really hard hitting and deep, tough line that once again Koda, putting this line in here really kind of gives you a deep look into like the people who commit such tragedies. When Midoriya sits him down, like I thought this was a scary line right here when he says, "Just look at these sheep. Any one of them could use their quirks and start a massacre whenever they want it. And yet they're all here, smiling. They think laws and rules will protect them because they assumed everyone has their same morals. They're convinced nothing bad could ever happen to them. After you, I could kill 20, 30, maybe even more before a pro hero shows up and manages to stop me." I was like, holy crap. I remember just that in Japanese and listening in English dub. I'm like, holy crap, that line is like, that hits hard because you gotta imagine that's probably what a lot of people probably think they could get away with this. Like, now, granted, he's not gonna do anything evil, but like, man, how many insane people out there, they just do it because they it's not about whether they get caught or not. It's just the fact of how many they could take out before they do it. I'm like,
yeah.
Wow.
And it's like, like a lot of villains, I think, not villains, but in real life, like people who, if they shoot up or if they do some kind of massacre like that, it's just the power of it. Like I've heard of people like, because I'll look on like, you know, like ID channel where it's like crime investigation and stuff where some like killers were just like, I wanted to have that power of like of taking someone else's life. Like I did that was me, you know. And seeing that just like you said, it made me scared where I'm like, dang, people in real life are like this, and here's this crazy villain with this kid. Like I could kill 20, 30, and then even before a pro could show up, and that's how other people are. Like, oh, I could take down a lot of people before the cops take me down, and it's just messed up, like a messed up world, you know.
And then even the part where he's talking about like, you know, people, he tries to spin it as, you know, they're all smiling and they think laws and rules protect them and stuff like that, when in reality, you know, people are doing it because it's just the human thing to do, is to know everybody should have a right to go out there and be themselves and hang out and not worry about things. So I I thought it was a really powerful line. And then going here, Midoriya, he explained to Shigaraki that the difference between him and the hero killer is that whether wrong or right, the hero killer fights for what he believes in to the very end, unlike Shigaraki, who back in season 1 abandoned his mission when he failed. And that's from there where Tomoro, who really started dang near choking Midoriya to death. He was crying and he even had snot coming out of his nose. I was like, holy snap, like you could feel the pressure almost for Midoriya. I was feeling for Midoriya, like, holy crap, he's literally suffocating him and there's nothing Midoriya could do, because he's only one touch away, because if he gets all 5 fingers, he disintegrates to dust because he decays anything. And he comes to the understanding and the belief that All Might is the reason to blame for all of this. Seeing that he must kill All Might in order to make things right, and this is his way of basically making showing society how fragile they are. And of course, finally the logic kicks in when Uraraka comes in and can clearly tell that, hey, you're not a friend, and they quickly play it off and everything, and she realizes Shigaraki, and he's like, if you follow me, I'll be mad, and then he runs off. Eric Vale does a great job, by the way, as him, definitely both the English and Japanese voice actors. So yeah, I thought the dialogue was really great. But in this case, I think I may have preferred this if maybe Midoriya was alone in like a dark alley and it was just them in that type of setting, just to logically make more sense. But yeah, really powerful segment to put over just how dangerous Shigaraki is going to become, because this is where he finds his conviction, giving more layers. So overall, any final thoughts you had on this whole segment in the mall with these two?
Well, yeah, I will say, because just as you mentioned, like, oh, you would have thought that this would have happened in like an alley or something more secluded, it's just them, something like that. But honestly, I feel like that it added more to the danger, the fact that they were in a mall filled with all these people, and again, like he said, like, oh, I could start killing 20, 30, whatever. It shows that like evil can be hiding in plain sight,
right?
And there he is, just like literally he's about to end Deku. That's what it felt like, and I like that they showed that scene like that, because it really built the tension.
And it really was probably him just using his backup card, because no doubt Midoriya would have swung around and start fighting back, but he didn't want to endanger the lives of everyone else. So yeah. And once again, shows how much of a coward the villain's, because he wouldn't have been playing that if All Might was there. But then let's see, we go toward the end here. So we learn from All Might's, and just to break up some of the nice, more positive note to end this on, Deku, he asks All Might, are there people you can save? And, All Might basically responded in quote, yes, I do, because I can't do as good as Sabbath does. Yes, I do. And often someone could be injured and calling out for my help anywhere in the world right now, and I would never know about it. I know it's frustrating, but we're only human. There are always going to be people beyond our reach that we can't protect, but that's all the more reason to stand tall and smile, so that the symbol of justice is always there, even when I can't be. The flicker in people's hearts, whether they be a hero or a villain. And then we learn from All Might's friend that he goes ahead and says that basically Shigaraki was just probably talking out of resentment, and that All Might has never failed to protect someone after arriving to them in an emergency. So I really love that, to like kind of break up on the more positive side of things. And it really does, I think, really resonate in life, because as much as we all can try things, we can't save everybody. That is true. It's something that my parents has raised me about. You can't save everyone, but at the same time, be thankful for who you can save. Be thankful for who you are able to get through. So that kind of really resonated with me in that sense, is the fact that All Might saying, like, we're not going to be able to save everybody, but you let that symbol of justice be around to tell the villains, the people out there that are out there for bad, like, hey, I'm right around the corner. And then for those that need it, hey, hope is here, and there's something to live for. So I really love that message to break up from what he said. So I thought it was really great. How did you like All Might's last message to Midoriya when he asked him that question?
And again, I think, yeah, this anime has a tendency to really speak to real life. And hearing that, like his speech that he gave there, again, it's like, because some people say like, well, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, should I sell everything I have, and like, should I'll give to the homeless, and then I'll go to Africa, and then I'll also do like missionary work, and I'll do this and I'll do that. Like, you get overwhelmed feeling like, wow, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough to help people. I'm not doing enough. Like I'm so selfish. I'm so whatever. But in the end, it's like, sometimes you need to do what you're called to do now. And maybe what you're called to do now is talk at 2 a.m. with your friend who wants to commit suicide, talk them out of it. Or maybe, you're called to help that one person. It doesn't mean like, and again, yeah, like we just get it in our heads like, no, I have to help everyone. No, I have to do everything. Like, you need to do what you're called to do in that moment. And that's what I like where he's saying here, where there's always going to be people that you can't save. That like, there's people calling for my help right now and I don't hear them, but if you can be this symbol of justice or the symbol of light, like they know that there's still a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, sometimes that's what you need to be. And yeah, I just really like that.
Well said. That was very beautifully said and everything. And this is why I love this series. There's just so much that can just resonate with you in life and you can take with you. And so this arc ends with All for One being happy that Shigaraki has found his conviction and that he is planning for Shigaraki to be his successor. And this is where season 2 ends on a cliffhanger for season 3. And that now completes our podcast review. We've reviewed season 1, season 2. One more season left to go before we get to season 4. So how'd you like the cliffhanger here? We find out that All for One, I guess, because up to this point he was presented as he was the top dog, the big villain. But in actuality, he's preparing Shigaraki to be the top dog. So I thought that was a nice little twist there. What did you think?
I mean, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they've been hyping up All for One through every arc, always ending with something big cliffhanger, and he gets into action in the season 3 finally. So definitely I can't wait to break down season 3, which is insane with lots of content. But that does it for now. So until next time, thank you for joining me, Rebecca RoseGold, and here are our plugs. Hey, this is SonGoshuaku
and Rebecca RoseGold.
For more of our content, click the links here in the video. Plus, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to both our channels so that way you are notified as soon as our content is released.
Also, in the description and pinned comment below are the links to all of our social media platforms.